Hello, BookTube. Well, I can't quite remember the reason why I went out and went to the Brattle bookshop here in Boston, but I did. I didn't go first thing in the morning either. I broke with my usual routine and went in the afternoon. We had a sultry, humid afternoon. A frontal system pushing hot weather and probably moisture, probably thunderstorms or rain. And so we're dealing with all the junk that it's pushing this way, and tomorrow it'll be completely different. Tomorrow will be in the 50s. So it was a pretty sultry, sunny afternoon, and I was there at the Brattle, which for those of you who are new to this channel is a used bookstore in the heart of downtown Boston. They're fantastic. They're big and bustling, a little too bustling in the middle of the day. There were lots of customers. When I go first thing in the morning, there are no customers except me. But it's a big, bustling place, and it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. There are 3 floors of books and a sale lot next door that's full of bargain books. $1, $3, and $5 books that aren't organized in any way. So in order to do the sale lot justice, you really have to devote some time and poke around at every book. I didn't do that today, but I did find a lot of books. I found 50 pounds of books that I want to show you. Starting with the mass market paperbacks. And with one mass market paperback we'll start with is a book that I have read a million times. I've read it a million times, and Mark Richardson up in Vermont has read it 1,000,001 times, and that is this, The Lively Lady by Kenneth Roberts, who, those of you who are young or younger, maybe will know this author for Rabble in Arms, his novel Rabble in Arms. This is a novel about the War of 1812, and it's terrific. It's a naval yarn, it's an adventure yarn, just amazing. And I remember when the Kenneth Roberts all the Kenneth Roberts backlist came out in these mass market paperbacks with this lining around the edges. And I thought it was really, really kind of neat. They had original sketches as the cover art and this lining around the edges. This was the only one I saw today. I would love to find, I have all of Kenneth Roberts on ebook, and I have a lot of them in hardcover, but I'd love to find the whole set of mass markets. Once upon a time, I used to sell bucket loads of these things in the bookstore, and I love them. Once again, I will say about Kenneth Roberts what Mark and I have said over the years. He seems on the surface like your grandfather's author. He seems like very much like a sun-faded yard sale type of book. There's actual life inside these pages, an amazing amount of it. If you want to give it a try, you won't be disappointed. Then we have science fiction. It doesn't look like science fiction on the cover. This is My Brother, My Enemy by Mitchell Wilson, whose name is complete. I don't know why old store owners, dime store owners, thrift shop owners, whatever, would often get mass market paperbacks like this from 50 years ago and put a mark on them. They'd write the price, 25 cents up top, or they'd put an X or something like that. I don't know why. I don't like it. Of course, there's no way to get rid of it. But this author is completely forgotten now. The closest that any part of his life, any part of his biography, would come to anyone who encounters him would be the name of one of his wives. He was briefly married to Stella Adler, the famous acting coach. But his science fiction, this is a terrific cover. That's just fantastic. It doesn't look like a science fiction novel. And I don't believe, that X is bothering me, but I don't believe that I've ever read this. I think I read one book of his. He didn't write that many books. I think I read one book of his that was actually recommended to me by a Russian friend of mine eons ago, during the Soviet Union. I don't know why a Russian friend would know about the science fiction author born in America. I assume that Mitchell Wilson was born in America. But this Russian friend could not stop singing his praises, and she recommended me a book, and this was not it. So I was kind of amazed to see this and grabbed it, of course. And then we have a murder mystery. This is Nio Marsh, Enter a Murderer, with this cover artist. Now, I have looked at a few of these, and I have never been able to determine who this cover artist is. Are you going to tell me you Berkeley edition? No, you're not. Nowadays, that doesn't happen. But forever and ever, books didn't credit their cover artists. But these are terrific. That you can't really make it out in the dodgy lighting here, because I think the thunderstorm is coming. But you can't really make it out with the dodgy lighting here. But that's incredibly detailed. It's incredibly fine texture work, and I have like 5 or 6 murder mysteries that have the same cover artist. and they're great. And Niall Marsh is great. I didn't notice until after I got this back to Hyde Cottage, this large type thing, but it's not obnoxious. It's just normal type size. I can live with that. I wish that weren't on the cover, but I can live with it. But I, years ago, reread a bunch of this author's books, including her novel Death of a Peer that I talked about on this channel, and loved it. She is such a classic old school murder mystery writer that I don't think I've ever read this. I'm not 100% sure. I'll know in the first 20 pages. Then we have a block of nature books. There were quite a few of them, and I didn't pass any of them up. They were all $1. One is one that we've seen on this channel just recently. This is Margaret Stanger. This is That Quail, Robert. And this is the mass market paperback of her story of taking in a little quail in her home off the coast of Massachusetts. It's got original artwork throughout there. And she just gets to know Robert. That's all. She just gets to know him. This is one of the gigantic subgenre of nature books where someone takes in a bird. Whatever kind of bird it is. They take in a bird, and then they write a book about it. And with a odds-defying degree of regularity, those books become bestsellers. And this was a huge bestseller. It had a sequel. And there were a whole bunch of other books like this. That Quail, Robert was probably the biggest of them, but there was also Arnie the Darling Starling, about a couple that take in a starling, and a bunch of others. And also Owl by William Service, a little book that I love. I've recommended it a million times on this channel. So I already have this, and I have copies of it, but I never pass up a mass market when I see it. Although, technically speaking, I probably should. Because if I'm not passing up these mass market paperbacks, they're not going to anybody. They're coming to me, where I already have them and already know the book. The only reason that I don't do that, the only reason that I find a book, That Quail, Robert is a wonderful book. If you have not read it and you find a copy at your yard sale, get it, because it's wonderful. You will remember it for the rest of your life. And the only reason that I don't leave it at the Brattle is a feature of the Brattle sale lot topography. The sale lot has walls of books, and it has wheeled carts of books. And way at the back of the sale lot, there's a dumpster. The Brattle hides it behind a fence because they don't want book people to go nuts about it, but there's a dumpster. And the books are slowly making their way back there, if they don't sell, at $5, and then at $3, and then at $1. If you're taking as many books as the Brattle shop is, just today, just this afternoon, they took in a huge amount of books. There's cart after cart after cart of books in boxes. If you take in as many books as they do, you cannot afford to be sentimental. And I might point out that if you have a book out in the sale lot of the Brattle Bookshop where book people go, and it's out there for 3 weeks at $5, 3 weeks at $3, and 3 weeks at $1, and it doesn't sell, you've given it as many chances as it deserves. I always think of the dumpster when I see something like this. I couldn't bear to have this thrown away, so I grabbed it. That is not an open invitation for one of you living in Papua New Guinea to ask me to mail it to you for $150. Okay? But there's more nature stuff. Like, for instance, Sally Carragher. I've mentioned her many times. She showed up on my little book room library tour. I have heard the cries for the library tour to continue, and I am taking them under advisement, as the saying goes. But this is her book, Wild Heritage, with a gigantic American buffalo on the cover there. And these are illustrated. There's a flying squirrel. There is also, believe it or not, a little subgenre of people who adopt flying squirrels, or squirrels just in general. And squirrels, they look cute and cuddly, but they are not domesticated animals at all. And they don't become domesticated. And their claws are sharp. So think long and hard before you take a squirrel into your home. But this is all wildlife. This isn't just, the domestic wildlife of America. It's a lovely book. I don't know how well this mass market will hold up. I seem to remember that the last time I had this mass market paperback, it exploded, as the little kids say. It exploded, and I couldn't save any of it, even the little spot drawings. So maybe this will have the same fate. I found another, Sally Carragher. This is One Day on Beetle Rock. Same thing. This is just, she hunkers down in a particular locale and gives you all of the creatures that live in that locale. That kind of looks like Henry Bugby Keane artwork. Oh my God, it is. This is illustrated by my favorite book illustrator, Henry Bugby Keane. How wonderful. I'd completely forgotten that. Wow, that certainly deserves another picture. Is that another squirrel? It is. He's wonderful. I love him as an illustrator, but I love her too. I just don't know how well these books are going to hold up. I don't have any idea. We'll have to see. And then 2 more nature books. I found The Beasts of My Fields by David Cretan. Never see this out in the wild anymore. This is, as you can tell from the cover, this is domesticated animals, only domesticated animals. And the 70s style winsome blonde staring at his rugged handsomeness. Am I right? Is this, 1977. Oh my God. Oh my God. The only defense that I can have for the way we all acted and dressed and read and talked and wrote in 1977 is that we were 100% convinced the world was coming to an end. We were 100% convinced of mutual assured destruction, of a full-scale nuclear war any minute. We were convinced that would happen any minute. If you were convinced of that, you would probably dress the way we did. You'd probably look, you'd have covers like this. Like the cow is yelling, why aren't you looking at me that way? Well, he just stands there, oblivious to everyone. But of course, he has a snug vest because the 70s had fashion dictums, after all. And then the last of the nature books is a beaver book. And this is by R.D. Lawrence, the author of Lady Chatterley's Lover. And this is a story about a beaver named Patty. I've had this book, but only as a hardcover. I don't think I've ever seen it as a mass market paperback. There is this was the fad for a long time. You had a mass market paperback of Born Free. You had a bunch of mass market paperbacks about wolves. Yeah, this guy wrote in praise of wolves. And they all had the same thing. They came out in mass market paperbacks and they had original illustrations. I didn't remember that Henry W. King did the illustrations for one of them, but they all had cute little illustrations. I have no idea. This is a whole block of nature books. I have no idea what kind of abuse they're going to take. I'm pretty rough on my stuff. I'll be gentle, but I don't know if any of them will survive one reading. But those are the only mass market paperbacks. And we'll move on from there. I got this Oxford volume of the major works of Samuel Johnson. And there he is on a stained glass window. It's kind of funny in a number of different ways. But these are huge. And Oxford did a whole series of these. They did Johnson and Byron and just a whole bunch of books, and even Dryden. They even did a volume of Dryden. They're all, what, is this 1,000 pages? 800? All huge books that really do cover a lot of ground. When it comes to an author like Johnson, or especially Byron, I would ordinarily sort of lean against a bits and pieces anthology. I would want, separate editions of the separate works. But these things were, a lot of critical care was lavished on this series. The introductions are incredible. The notes are incredible. They're worth it. They're very much worth it. I have a whole bunch of selected and collected works of Johnson, but I wasn't going to pass this up for $1. Then we have editors on editing, an inside world of view of what editors really do. What do editors really do? What do they do all day? This is edited by Gerald Gross, who was himself a great editor. I'm gonna say was because I'm guessing that he's dead. I always come up short on that when I do a book haul like this. Always, I will say, well, someone is surely pushing up daisies, and without fail, 10 of you will email me or leave comments saying, "Oh, they're still alive. They're 150." I'm pretty sure that Gerald Gross is dead. But boy, oh boy, what a career he had at Harcourt. I think he was at Harcourt. I don't remember what incarnation of Harcourt. Was it Harcourt Brace or Harcourt Brace Jovanovic? I don't remember what its corporate name was when he was there, but he was there for decades, and he knew a lot of writers, a lot of huge names that relied on him. He was their first reader, and he shaped a lot of what they did. But this isn't just him. This is edited by him, but it has a whole bunch of people. There are going to be a lot of editor names in here that I know that are long since forgotten. Yeah, Saul Stein. William Targ. There are going to be a lot of people in here, and they're all going to, you've got theory, practice, and then correspondences, where you reprint letters between authors and their editors, including, of course, Maxwell Perkins. He'll certainly be in here. But one of the reasons why I got this, it was $1, so I was going to get it anyway. But I took a brief look at the table of contents, and there's a lot of stuff in here on the practical side of editing. What you do in order to shape a book for being a mass market bestseller, how you deal with reviewers, all that sort of thing. And I should point out that in addition to being a sexy influencer on BookTube and a prolific book reviewer, I am also a book section editor. It's a tiny book section. It's the tiniest newspaper book section in the world, but nevertheless, Big Canoe News in Northern Georgia is a print newspaper. And it's lovely. It's a beautiful thing. Those of you who've done me the very great compliment of subscribing to it will know that. It doesn't look like a small town newspaper. And my book section is not local. I have a 2-page book section spread that is all about new releases. Not new releases written by, Bob Terwilliger in the next town over, but new releases in the national and international stage. So I count as an editor. That's what I'm trying to say. It is with flailing self-defensiveness. Then we have a big book. I cannot remember if I have sent this to Mark Richardson up in Vermont. If I have, then I'll keep this copy for myself. And if I haven't, then I'll clean it up and send it to him. This is by Dudley Pope, who a lot of you will know mostly as a fiction author. He wrote the Ramage series of Napoleonic-era seafaring novels. But he also did nonfiction. He's a terrific nonfiction writer on Napoleonic-era seafaring stuff. And this is The Great Gamble. This is Nelson at Copenhagen. So this is Nelson, and when you think Nelson, if you think, for instance, the Aubrey and Maturin novels of Patrick O'Brien or something like that, you think Nelson, you automatically think Napoleon. But before he could fight Napoleon and be in charge of things, he was second in command at Copenhagen when he fought the Danes. He fought the Danish Navy because of a hugely complicated political imbroglio that involved the assassination of a Russian Tsar. Poor saintly Paul I was assassinated. And kicked off it's a whole thing, as the kids on TikTok say. But Nelson knew the whole time. He was incredibly frustrated because he wasn't in charge. But he knew the whole time that, as I think Dudley Pope says in this book, he knew perfectly well that England was fighting the wrong enemy. He knew that it was France that was the enemy. Boy, oh boy, was he right. I don't think he had any idea this is a big book, and it's a lot of fun. I read this ages and ages ago. I might have read this when it came out. Let's take a look and see. Maybe I don't want to admit. What the? Did somebody cut out? Oh, no, there we go. Ooh. We're back to the 70s. 1972. That's probably the last time I read this. And it's terrific. Just slam bang. So I got 2 nautical swashbuckling things. 2 Mark Richardson productions here. I got The Lively Lady and I got Gamble at Copenhagen, which, it's a vital part of Nelson's life. It's just, it usually gets a chapter in a big Nelson biography because greater things await, because he's going to face the forces of Napoleon on the open sea. But seeing him at Copenhagen sort of eagerly at the shoulder of his first in command, who didn't have a tenth of his ability, is very interesting. It's very, very interesting. Then this next one, we're wrapping up. Don't you worry. This next one is a book that I've read a couple of times. I very much wanted to review it. I wasn't in reviewing when it came out, but I very much wanted to. All of you have seen it. A lot of you have it on your shelf. I've had it on my shelf from time to time. There's nothing in it that I don't know, and I mean down to the smallest detail, the smallest date, the smallest day on the calendar. But I got a copy anyway, and I got a copy because it's a UK hardcover. Because I'm shallow. I'm a 6-year-old. I got Claire Tomlin's biography of Samuel Pepys. The Unequaled Self. Nice, big, thick. Oh, look at that. Oh, what a burn. That is such a burn. That is not Mrs. Pepys. Oh, how awful. Oh my God, did they put Nell Gwynn on the back of the book? Oh, that is not Miss. This man had a wife, for God's sake. Oh, that is bad. Oh no, I'm wrong. That is Mrs. Pepys. That is Elizabeth Pepys. Good. There she is. Long-suffering wife. if you had Samuel Pepys as husband, great. But this is who does this? Penguin Viking. But this is the UK. And that's the only reason I got it. Well, that's not the only reason I got it. It's a great biography. It's widely regarded as the best thing Claire Tomlin has yet done. Unless one of you is going to tell me that she's dead. It's a great biography. It's just, I know Pepys' life. I don't... we're losing the light here because a thunderstorm is definitely brewing. But I know Pepys' life. And, that shouldn't be a bar. Because I have plenty of biographies of people whose lives I know in every detail. So now I have this. I will give it a reread too. I've been yearning to read deeply into Pepys, not just the diary. I go back to the diary a lot, but not just the diary, but to read more about him. I have a whole bunch of books about him. And at the Brattle today, out in the sale lot, there was not one but 2 copies of the illustrated Pepys, an abridged sort of overview of Pepys's life and world, the characters in it, full of portraits and diagrams and whatnot, I think edited by Robert Latham, who did the big, shorter Pepys. I already have it, so and as far as I can remember, I already have the illustrated Pepys. And as far as I can remember, I was at the Brattle alone. So it wouldn't have been that I could recommend it to anybody. So I just left it there. I left both copies there. And then we have the final 2 items here, which are comic book related. And I grabbed them right away. I grabbed, well, we'll end with the big guy. So I got this thing, which I don't think I've looked at in forever. Oh my God. Oh, it's a review copy. Oh my God. There's a pub sheet in here. Okay, fantastic. This is the greatest Golden Age stories ever told. And you comic book aficionados will not need me to tell you that is a Jerry Ordway cover. You people who have the sense not to be comic book aficionados won't have any idea what that means. That is beautiful. And this is the Golden Age. This is before... If you're wondering what the Golden Age is, you can date it from when Green Lantern was updated to have the gayest superhero costume of them all. That skin-tight green and black leotard with the ever-so-stylish white gloves. Everything before that is the Golden Age. And then everything after that is the, oh God, what were we thinking age. And this has just, look at that. The 3 most popular superheroes in the world for so long. Actually, that's not true. These are 3 of the 5 most popular superheroes that DC had for decades. Superman, Batman, very much Robin, on his own. When he had a backup story solo in a Batman book, fans wrote in by the bushel saying, can we have another one? But there were 2 others who were also incredibly popular at the same time. And by random chance, they were both handsome teenagers in skin-tight spandex. It was Superboy and Captain Marvel Jr. You think Captain Marvel, you think, the big red cheese, the guy in the big red costume. But Captain Marvel Jr. outsold Captain Marvel on many, many occasions in many, many business quarters. So those 2 aren't here. I don't think they'll be in the book either. Superboy, actually both for legal reasons. Superboy is in here. But Captain Marvel Jr. will not be. I bet I don't know when this thing came out, but probably DC Comics did not own Fawcett when this came out. So they couldn't have Captain Marvel Jr. in here. When did this come out? Please don't say the 70s. No, 1990. 1990. I remember this vaguely. I don't think I've ever owned it. And right alongside it was this, the greatest Superman stories ever told. And we know for a fact, well, you Superman fans are going to disagree with me, but we know for a fact that at least one Superman story in this collection is not one of the greatest Superman stories ever told, because John Byrne is doing the artwork for the cover. And he wouldn't have agreed to do that unless one of his Superman desecrations was in here. So shall we check? Shall we check? Oh my God, this is a review copy as well. I know exactly who these books came from. I asked at the Brattle about a whole batch of books, and they told me. I know who did this, but yeah, this ends with... oh, okay. All right, you are forgiven. You are forgiven. I'm flipping through this thing, and I was flipping through it in order to get to the John Byrne story that is certainly at the back of the book. But before I got there, I got to For the Man Who Has Everything. So All is Forgiven. One of the greatest Superman stories of them all that we've gone through on this channel. But I want to see. I'm going to ruin my own story, but I want to see. Yeah, okay. There you go. There's John Byrne hamming it up. Okay. Well, but it doesn't matter. I don't have to read that story, or I could read it. Maybe I'll find something new and different, better in it. But anyway, we ended up with comic books, the greatest Superman stories ever told. DC Comics does this regularly. They do a book regularly called The Greatest Superman Stories Ever Told, and they just shift things around. The last couple that they've done have stunk to high heaven, because most of the stuff that's been done on any of Superman's books in the last 10 or 15 years has been wretched. Absolutely wretched. That, I am happy to point out, is not true at the moment. Superman and Action Comics right now are pretty good. Well worth buying as individual issues. And it wasn't always so. So we'll do a Brattle haul here. Yes, we'll do a Steve pyramid. We've got the greatest Superman stories ever told, and the greatest Golden Age stories ever told. So these would have been. I would have had to fight Michael K. Vaughan if he'd been at the Brattle with me. But I don't ever go to the Brattle with interesting people, so he wasn't with me. Then what else are we going to do here? Claire Tomlin, her big fat life of St. Louis Peeps. Oh, no. Joe Gross has slipped to the floor, and the wine hasn't even started flowing yet. We have the great Gamble, Nelson at Copenhagen. We have the great Cam himself, Samuel Johnson. We've got a block of mass market nature titles. This isn't going to work. And then a mystery, science fiction, and historical fiction. So I got a bunch of mass market paperbacks, but I'm okay with that. And then the great editor, Gerald Gross, has fallen to the floor. Yes, this thing. Editors on editing. So that I will finally find out what editors are supposed to do. What are they supposed to do all day? And there you go. That was my Brattle book haul in the middle of a hot, bright day that's going to feel like a curiosity in just a few minutes. Literally, an hour or two is going to change that completely. So that the weather that I experienced today will feel like a curiosity. It's going to stay that way for a long time. So it was a fun thing. Let's see. So I got bright sunlight, high humidity, the Brattle in the afternoon, lots and lots of customers, 50 pounds of books. Yeah, I don't think I've left anything out, so that'll do it for now. Thank you, BookTube.